At the 2021 AEW All Out pay-per-view, we saw CM Punk have his first wrestling match in over 7 years as he took on Darby Allin. But this match between CM Punk and Darby Allin did not go as planned, and the match is now being heavily criticized by fans. As CM Punk started his match with Darby Allin, fans were hoping that this match could end up being one of the best matches of the year. But instead of starting out with an exciting, fast-paced match, the match was very slow, and CM Punk did tons of rest holds. The crowd was very quiet during this early part of the match, but it wasn't until about 10 minutes into the match when the crowd started getting into it. And then CM Punk and Darby Allin went back and forth, trading different moves, and eventually CM Punk won the match by defeating Darby Allin with the go to sleep. After the match ended, fans went to the internet and they said that this match was nowhere near as good as they thought it was going to be, and the match got very mixed reviews. And some fans have even went on to say that CM Punk having such an average match with Darby Allin was a very big mistake, and AEW officials should have went out of their way to make sure that this match with CM Punk and Darby Allin be a fantastic and even great match. But fans don't know that this actually was the plan. AEW officials didn't want CM Punk and Darby Allin to have a fantastic match, a 5-star match. Instead, they wanted CM Punk to wrestle a very slow and methodical match because CM Punk is in his early 40s now. He hasn't wrestled a wrestling match in over 7 years. They wanted him to take his time. They didn't want him to get too tired in the match, which was one of the reasons why it only went 16 minutes. And fans were also confused by the fact the match was only 16 minutes. They were hoping for a 30 or even 40-minute match, partially because CM Punk started the match with all of these different rest holds. And the match only got really fast-paced in the last 3 or 4 minutes. And you could tell when the match ended that CM Punk was very disappointed with how the match turned out. And there are even some backstage reports that state that CM Punk wasn't happy with the match. He wished that he could have had at least 10 to 15 more minutes to have more action in the match, because there was very little action, especially in the first 10 minutes. But fans need to remember, CM Punk is 42 years old, he hasn't wrestled for 7 years, CM Punk is going to be around for a long time in AEW. This is just the beginning, and fans need to remember that. And even though this match was heavily criticized by some fans, there were also other fans who did like this match. They thought it was a very good match as a first match back for CM Punk. He should take his time, because eventually we are going to see a fantastic 5-star match with CM Punk. I'm sure of it. And there were no real signs that CM Punk was not good in the ring. He didn't make any huge botches or mistakes in the match. It's just that some fans believed that CM Punk made a big mistake by deciding that I should take my time with this match. I should not try to have a 5-star match. There were many fans who bought this show who have never purchased an AEW pay-per-view before. This will probably end up being AEW's biggest pay-per-view buy rate ever. And it's probably because of CM Punk. Fans were expecting CM Punk to have a great 5-star match, and instead he just had an above-average match. It wasn't a bad match whatsoever, but it was just an above-average match that was acceptable, but it was definitely not the 5-star, great, fantastic match that fans were expecting CM Punk to have against Darby Allin at AEW All Out. There is some very sad breaking news about the fallout of Daniel Bryan's AEW debut. At the 2021 AEW All Out pay-per-view, we saw 2 surprise AEW debuts at the end of the show. First, we saw former NXT champion Adam Cole make his debut for AEW. He came out, he had a big babyface reaction, but then he joined the Elite. But then out of nowhere, we heard music play, and we finally saw Daniel Bryan make his AEW debut. But instead of being called Daniel Bryan, he will now go by his real name, Bryan Danielson. Now, the reason why he will no longer be called Daniel Bryan is because WWE has banned AEW from using the name Daniel Bryan in AEW, so he'll just be called Bryan Danielson going forward to avoid any kind of lawsuit or legal issues. Bryan Danielson then went to the ring and helped out the babyfaces and stopped the Elite from attacking Christian Cage. But there was something that fans noticed when Bryan Danielson was in the ring. A lot of the fans in the arena were doing the yes chant, but Bryan Danielson was basically kind of ignoring them, and Bryan Danielson didn't do his usual yes chant routine, where he usually points his fingers in the air. And now there is breaking news regarding this situation, the fact that Bryan Danielson will not be allowed to use the yes chants in AEW. And Bryan Danielson himself has actually revealed what the situation is. So after AEW All Out went off the air, Bryan Danielson was involved in a post-pay-per-view press conference for All Out. And during this press conference, Bryan Danielson actually addressed the current situation with the yes chants, if he's allowed to even acknowledge them, to start yes chants. And let me go ahead and just repeat what he said in this press conference. I don't know. We're going to have to talk about what I can do and what I cannot do. One of the things I do try to respect, because like I said, I appreciate the people I worked for before and respecting their intellectual property. So making sure that I don't contradict any of that. The fans doing it is great, but I'm not sure if I'm going to do it. So after hearing this, it's obvious that Bryan Danielson is afraid of WWE suing him or suing AEW if he does the yes chants, if he starts them, which makes Daniel Bryan's AEW debut very sad because he wasn't able to do it, and from the looks of it, he's not going to be able to do any yes chants going forward unless he gets it approved by WWE, and it looks like that's not going to happen anytime soon. But at any time, things could change, and Bryan Danielson could be allowed to do the yes chants again. But one thing that WWE and Vince McMahon cannot stop is the fans doing the yes chant themselves. So at the end of the day, it probably really doesn't matter that much if we don't see Bryan Danielson start yes chants in AEW. Do you think that Bryan Danielson should be allowed to use his old name Daniel Bryan in AEW? And do you also think that WWE should allow Bryan Danielson should be able to use the yes chants in AEW? And also, what did you think of CM Punk's match against Darby Allin at AEW All Out? Leave a comment and give me your opinion. And don't forget to subscribe and click the bell notification so you don't miss our next video.